Today is Trinity Sunday. Our gospel text is perhaps one of the most familiar texts in the entire New Testament. God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. John chapter 3, verses 16 through 18. There is a twofold revelation in this. First of all, God becomes human, the enfleshing of God. The second part of the revelation is that this enfleshing of God is an act of love, an expression of God's infinite love. This lays the groundwork for our understanding as Christians, as believers, what it means to be a human being. John expands it, reiterates it, and expands it in his first letter. Listen to some of what John says there. It's worth many hours of meditation, these texts. John writes, God in 1 John, God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. So that we might live through him. Already there he's saying the true life we live, our real existence, is our life in God, is a divine existence. John goes on, God lives in us, and his love is perfected in us. God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. There's an immense amount of rich understanding of what it means to be a human being there. The Catechism of the Catholic Church takes up this theme, and it's a theme that is too often overlooked. It is the very heart of our faith, the mystical heart of our faith. The Catechism cites a number of the great teachers of our tradition. In number 460, the Catechism says, the Word became flesh to make us partakers of the divine nature, quoting 1 Peter 1 through 4 there. For this is why the Word became a human being, says St. Irenaeus, so that we, by entering into communion with the Word, might become sons and daughters of God. Then the Catechism quotes St. Athanasius in a much quoted text, actually, because it's so remarkable. St. Athanasius says, for the Son of God became a human being so that we might become God. And then finally, the Catechism quotes St. Thomas Aquinas, the only begotten Son of God, wanting to make us sharers in his divinity, assumed our nature, so that he, made a human being, might make us into gods. When was the last time you heard this proclaimed, this truth, this theme? When was the last time you reflected on it? It goes to the very heart of what it means to be you, to be this human being, this part of the Incarnation. The Incarnation is not just an historical event. The Incarnation is an ongoing fact of the life of the Church. We're all manifestations of the enfleshing of God. The stunning truth of the Incarnation is that in embracing our enfleshed humanity in all its messiness, tedium, delights, disappointments, and tragicomic pretenses, we become God. The very thought of it should bring us to our knees in gratitude and reverence. The moral implications of this are profound and practical. To be is to be in love. That's what it is saying. that our very existence, which is given to us, not something we earn, not something we win or merit, is given unmerited to us. Our very existence is love. Literally, to be in love. Love is from God, writes John in his first letter. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. And John is saying we are born of God and we know God. Therefore, we are the instruments of God's love and the recipients of God's love and the creation of God's love. To live, to really live, is to become love. Love is not something we do, it is something we are. John again, first letter. In this is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us, sent his Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. Now, in this context, it's worth noting a very significant obstacle that has developed over the centuries in our Catholic culture. I call it moralism. It's not morality, it's the very enemy of morality. Moralism is the approach to the Christian life whereby we see Jesus as a moral teacher primarily. We reduce Jesus' teachings to behaviors, customs, laws, moral imperatives. And we find those either explicitly stated or supported in the teachings of Jesus. So we reduce the Christ life to a moral life. Everything is seen through the prism of a supposed morality. I think this is a huge obstacle to hearing the good news we have just reflected on through the Catechism, and particularly through our text today. God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. We can say that the question God's presence asks of us all the time, every day, will you let me love you? Will you let me bring you into the fullness of life, which is love? I want to live in you. I want to live through you. I want to be there for the world through you. Our task then, do everything we possibly can to let God be God in us, through us, and with us for our world.